Hey, what's up, everybody? The V Club here, otherwise known as the Villain Club. It's about anything and everything, and it doesn't lean towards liberalism. Definitely not. Definitely not that. But it's just about giving information and opinion on things, anything and everything. All right, nothing's off the table, and anything can be talked about. Even if you got something you want to talk about, bring it up to me, and I'll even bring it about and give you my thoughts on it. Like I said, anything and everything, all right? And it's like Seinfeld, it's a show about nothing. But anyhow, let's just get to it here. The thing I wanted to talk about is the JD Vance and Tim Walz debate, all right? So that's one of the most talked about things. I was able to catch bits and pieces of it when it was shown live, and watching all the highlights in the aftermath. It's pretty fascinating, to say the least. So I think the best thing to do is to let's see here, kind of cover a couple of these cuts. I think that way you guys get a feel of what was exchanged between JD Vance and Tim Walz here. It was actually the parts that I've watched live. I thought it was pretty fascinating. um, a way of going about things. You could tell that JD Vance is very, very polished, and it doesn't take BS, and straight up knows his shit. All right, let's watch this one. Let's see here. A local. There's a couple of these I want to cover here.
The candidates, Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
First of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get.
Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax, and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in.
We have a historic immigration crisis because
when it comes to the climate crisis and things like that, it's so overly stated. All right, let's just say that it's so overly stated.
Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies.
This is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield.
The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have
app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
gentlemen. The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
But as I
See that part right there, that was the biggest thing that occurred in this debate, was because CBS agreed in advance that there would be no fact checking from the moderators, and yet when she did that, that was a fact check, and so that's why JD Vance, kind of fought back against that, because it was just like, well, since you're fact checking, well then let me tell you the facts. So I want to get another piece of analysis on that part in a few minutes here.
read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric.
These are women's decisions to make about their health care decisions, and the physicians who know better.
And what was fascinating about that, upon further research about that whole botched abortion and the term how you provide care, was changed by Tim Walz in that law. So rather than going through everything that you can to make sure you preserve life, you just provide care. But what's care? Just making sure it's wrapped in a blanket. That's providing care, right? But if you're preserving life, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that baby is supported, that's watched, that's that you're side by side next to it, keeping an eye on it, heavy observation. That's preserving life, and that was what was said in that law that was changed by Tim Walz to just just provide support. But it's so wide open to where it's not to preserve life. So it's very, very fascinating, deep, detailed information that on the surface it doesn't appear anything, but when you really read into it, it is really, really heavily, I guess you could say, detailed in such a way that it really leaves it up to the interpretation of what the doctors say, rather than if it's to preserve life, then you got to go all hands on deck to make sure that botched, living baby, botched late-term abortion living baby lives, right?
Best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. And I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. So. Christ have mercy.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested.
January 6th is so 4 years ago, and they accused Trump that he was going to overthrow the democracy and the government. They're not going to, step in and be able to certify the election and hand it over, which he all did. And so it's so old and dated, it's done with, all right? And they keep bringing this thing up. The question is, will Kamala certify the election if she loses? That's the real question.
Manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
We have the greatest country.
And it's like, well, if she could do all that, why couldn't she just do it already? That's been the biggest question, that she could have been doing all that already. So to me, if she's just a carryover of the Biden administration because she was or is the vice president, kind of technically the sitting acting president, but how's that, going to really change anything? Because, she's bringing a new way forward. Is she? Maybe more extremism.
Country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Fascinating cuts there. Let me see here. Let's see here. Highlights. Hopefully this one's not skewed in any sort of way here. Let's give this one a shot. See what this one shows. But a lot of people agree, even in liberal media.
To our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. My party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do.
We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that...
So that was a fascinating tape because what what JD Vance explained about the whole process of what illegals are doing to come in to become termed legal, all they're doing is applying for parole or for asylum through the CBP One app. And then once they come to the border, they're granted access. That could be for anybody, right? So he's explaining a fact where Tim Walz said, oh, that's been in the book since like 1990. Well, the app hasn't been around since 1990, but I don't know what fact that he was trying to put in that's been around since 1990, but the point of it is they try to fact check how the Haitians are here as legal migrants, when in fact they're still illegal immigrants that happen to be granted access to the CBP One app and granted that whole status that they're on, and then they were sent over to, of all places, Springfield, Ohio, of all places, and that's a fact. But yet, they did, fact check. Tim Walz bit back because you say, hey, you fact checking me, let me give you a fact, which he brought on a fact to correct them. They cut the mics because they know that they were wrong, and they're trying to at the same time try to move forward. And then you hear like liberal media talking about how Tim Walz was overstepping his bounds and talking over women, and women should be infuriated by what he did. And it's like, well, they were trying to do something that they broke their own rules, and all Tim Walz did was try to correct that broken rule that they instilled, that they did.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer, and
this is where he lied, right? This is a fact that he lied about, and no fact checking there, right? But he lied about it and was fronted right here, put on the spot, and he really got no answer for it. He got put into a corner on this question here.
Misspoke on this, so I will just, that's what I've said.
How many times have you said he's misspoken?
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Yeah, so he lied about being at Tiananmen Square when that whole situation happened back in '89. There was a big protest in Tiananmen Square in China because they're trying to push for, democracy and stuff. A lot of resistance and protesting. They rolled tanks, and they didn't care. They rolled over people. I mean, that's how ruthless the government was at that time. But once they inflicted death upon protesters, man, the world was like, wow, they can't believe China did that to their own people. But it did stop and quell everything at the same time. It kind of just, it took the life out of the room of that whole Tiananmen Square thing. But he was saying he was there, and then all of a sudden when he got put into the corner, when facts were looked up, that how can he be there when he wasn't there? And then he changed it and said, "Oh, I was around there later on after the fact, but I got to be into the culture. I got to see what they were doing, and then I just misspoke." Right? How many times have you said that he misspoke? Right? Because he said he misspoke about his stolen valor. All right, about his he said he misspoke about that. But anyhow, those were clear, and it was an interesting debate. And let's see, CBS Monitor ripped for fact checking, right? A lot of people were critical about their fact checking, right? But also a lot of people, even liberal media, for the most part, agreed that Tim Walz pretty much lost that debate, It was funny. The only thing that liberal media could really do was really find little bits of something to try to say, that, J.D. Vance was whatever, right? Just like how I mentioned how the liberal media women were trying to talk about, he overstepped, and you should be infuriated if you're a feminist because of the way that Tim Walz is, going there, or not Tim Walz, J.D. Vance trying to talk over the females like that and try to, what do you call that, man speak over them and stuff. And it's like, bitch, please. All right, because if he didn't correct them, they'd be trying to fact check him again. And he wanted to squash that because CBS said they would not fact check. All right. So there's plenty of questions that they didn't fact check Tim Walz on. Right. Just like how, it goes back to the thing about how they continue to fact check Trump and not Kamala during that debate. Right. So it's just funny how that is. And it's funny because I think they should do a Fox debate and then see how it really works. But, of course, I think the debates are done at this point till the election because it's only a month away till the election. And, I think debates are done. At this point, there's just going to be a lot of appearances. They should do a town hall. That'd be kind of fascinating just to kind of have them sit there on a stage, take questions from the audience that are there present. It'd be fascinating if they would do that, but I don't think you'd be able to competitively have two opponents on the same stage taking questions. I think they'll just have individual town hall meetings. Maybe they'll have a Trump with Vance together at a town hall, and I don't even know if Kamala and Walz are going to do any town halls. But let me just bring you some facts to close this thing out. All right, Tim Walz lost the debate. All right, and I don't know, they've done some stuff like they're looking at. Let me go to here. There's even analysis and such where let me see, I'll show you. I'm not going to go and watch the video, but they were talking about analysis of how they could see based on body language and behavior and facial appearances of how Tim Walz was really, mortified in a sense, even though, of course, if he didn't really express it in that way, but just his expressions, they said the wrinkles on his head when he was, thinking or processing, things like that. I'm not a body language expert and facial expert, whatever, but they were pointing those things out that those experts can see those sort of signs and signals. But clearly, J.D. Vance knew his shit and wasn't going to take bullshit from the moderators and threw it down. But man, there were so many questions still had to be asked. They're focused on old shit like, January 6th when there could be so many questions asked, about like Kamala and stuff. All right, everything about Trump. What about Kamala, right? The stuff that she could be doing right now, right? And all the bullshit so-called, agenda that she may bring. But Tim Walz was only picked because she's a stooge for Kamala and nothing more. If there was a Ben Shapiro, for example, or Josh Shapiro, from Pennsylvania, be a stronger candidate to go head-to-head against J.D. Vance. But hey, we'll never know, right? We'll never know. But it was clear, just based on, all right, that Tim Walz clearly lost, all right? And, yeah, he's in over his head. This is way advanced stuff when it comes to government and policies and all that. He don't even know his own law that he signed, that the verbiage is different on the abortion in Minnesota, right? And just in itself, right? So, just saying, all right? But I just want to give you guys my take on it. Yeah, that, hey, it'll be interesting to see more and more of the aftermath of this and kind of to see what happens from here on out. What's J.D. Vance going to do now, right? What's Tim Walz going to do now at this point? What's Kamala going to do? And we all know what Trump's been doing, right? He's been, going around and being presidential because he was president, but he's doing presidential things, whereas where's Biden, right? Where's Biden at? And then meanwhile, I'll give you this last piece here, where they say that Kamala was on the phone, right? Let's see here. On the phone picture, right? Where they show a picture of her on the phone, and she was mocked for a staged photo. Let me see here. So I'm going to cut to this right here because they think that the photo that they show from her people is just a staged photo. They make it look like she's doing something about the hurricane because she's probably getting pressured because, well, no one's really doing anything from the administration.
He was actually doing something, but in this photo, as some very astute people on X pointed out, she has those iPhone earbuds that plug into your phone, but her phone is not connected, on the desk, and she's pretending to be on a phone call. It's not even plugged in. It's not even plugged in. There's a piece of paper in front of her, as if she's taking notes from the FEMA director. It's a blank piece of paper. I mean, if you're gonna fake it and try to make it look like you're making it, at least don't just do it this poorly. I mean, try to make it look like you're at least attempting to cover your tracks, for God's sake. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, who has never been more clearly out to lunch, is confusing a labor strike with the Israeli strike on the Houthis. They asked him for what he thought about the Israeli operation in Yemen. He said he supports collective bargaining, as if it's a labor dispute with auto workers in a picket line.
Oh shit!
I mean, this is just catastrophic incompetence. This is very much this administration's version of what happened to Hurricane Katrina under George W. Bush. Is actually much worse in terms of the incompetence. But back then, Kanye West infamously said that George W. Bush hates black people, which was a racist smear back then and is a smear today. But this very DEI so-called equity-obsessed administration on the FEMA website today, I took a look earlier and I noted that they have diversity listed as their #1 goal for the agency or agency for federal disasters. This equity-obsessed administration is currently leaving behind overwhelmingly, disproportionately working class and poor white people in Appalachia in North Carolina. It is a horrific, horrific look this close to an election.
And the thing about it is, I mean, it's obvious. Joe Biden is a lame duck right now because he got forced out of the primary. He's done. He's just cashing it in till the end. That's all he's trying to do. He's trying to get by as little as possible, but too much shit keeps cropping up, and he's like, fuck, I got to do something now. He has to deal with the port strike, he has to deal with this hurricane, he has to deal with the whole Israeli, Hamas, and Houthis, and Iran, and all that stuff that's going on right now. A lot of shit is happening here, and he's really just trying to just call it in every day until the end. He's done. He's just totally done. And that's the sad thing about it. It's been like a week, and I think he's supposed to be flying in finally to go over the hurricane a week later after the fact when, they mentioned there Bush got criticized for flying over Hurricane Katrina within the next day or two of the aftermath because he said he didn't want to touch down and kind of get in the middle of their efforts, but then he got criticized for being racist because, New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina during that time in 06 is a primarily black population or black populated area. What about this white? It doesn't matter, right? White populated North Carolina is being ignored. Maybe this is part of this whole DEI thing. They sent $8 billion over to Israel or Ukraine, and yet nothing to help the hurricane because all the rescue efforts, all the life-saving measures, everything that they're doing when it comes to what's going on in the ravaged parts of the East, right, is all done by local people, local law enforcement, local agencies, county agencies, but nothing from the federal government, from FEMA. And that's sad. It's so sad that that's, what's happening here. And that really shows how treasonistic and how un-American the Biden administration is. They don't give a damn about Americans. Why can't you guys see that, all right? They don't give a damn because they keep catering to the migrants. They keep sending money overseas. But yet they're not doing nothing to help improve our lives, our infrastructure, except they're making it more difficult, and they clearly don't care about us. Anyhow, that's the latest here. I just wanted to share you guys my thoughts. And I just want to say thank you. Share with me your thoughts, or if you want to talk about anything and everything, throw it on the table and I'll talk about it. Other than that, we'll see you tomorrow on another one. Thanks.